What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Grim DM here, and I'm now able to make videos. My daughter came for a holiday, which was super awesome. She's gone back home. I have the house to myself. No noise, no interruptions. So I haven't got to do any hobbying over the last week or so. But I thought I would make a video about, and as you would have seen from the thumbnails, whether AD&D, and more specific to me, 2nd edition, is it better than 5e? Now, I'm going to say yes, but let me just preface the points that I'm going to make in this video with a statement that, for the most part, I don't really care what edition you play, or even what game. I just think tabletop RPGs are insanely good. It's a real passion of mine, Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm just happy that people are playing and the hobby continues. Now, I'm not going to be talking in any way, in this video at least, about Wizards of the Coast, how they've handled Dungeons and Dragons up until this point, what's happening in the future. I'm not going to be covering the new D&D books. I'm not going to be covering 5th ed content, I don't think, unless something happens that is like pertinent to me. Now, that's not to say that if a 5th edition book came out, I won't buy it, but the chances are very, very low. I'd rather spend that money reclaiming the collection that I had to sell off. But like, I have the Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and I'll keep that because it's Dragonlance, it's the world of Kryn, it's my favourite D&D setting. So I'm going to just go through a few points, half a dozen or so, of why I think 2nd edition is better. You play what you want. This is just what does it for me. So the first point is the amount of options for character creation. Now, this can be also a negative, I suppose, with AD&D 2nd edition. With all the splat books for all the different character classes, then races, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of kits. I really am a big fan of like having the non-weapon proficiencies as well, which was a departure from 1st edition D&D. But I think, you know, if people use their imagination with the kits that are available, you really can make a character that is something super duper special, you know, and that's one of the loves of the game. Now, of course, I've been a DM for most of that gaming time, so I don't get to experience the playing side, but it's fun when people come up with good characters. And I'm not talking about min-maxing, because that is a negative. People just try to make the most potent lethal thing like it's a video game. I don't like that sort of attitude. But yeah, I think the character creation options are far better. And even to that point, I am somewhat, I guess, more restrictive. I'm not a huge fan of multi-classing. I'm not a huge fan of even things like Dragonborn, like half-orc player characters. That's just me. I guess I sort of have a more traditional, I guess, sort of fantasy aesthetic, I guess you could say, when it comes to my games. But the point is that those options are there for the players and the DMs who want to run those sort of games. Now, I think, this is point number 2, that combat in 2nd edition is vastly superior, for a number of reasons. So 5th edition, so I did run a 5th ed campaign a few years ago for some people. I mean, 5th edition has a lot of emphasis on role play, and, you know, the flow of narration and those kinds of things. but second edition really pays off for the players that are tacticians when it comes to combat. Some people really want to get into that nuts and bolts of how they're fighting. How player characters and NPCs are positioned, resource management. And that can be like spell components. It can be, having throwing knives or ninja stars or those sorts of things. The repair of your armor. Has your armor class suffered because your armor is not well maintained, or it's been a long time before you've been able to get someone to repair it. Movement, economy of action, all these things are really, really a part of second edition, and it makes it sound daunting. And you can start it off as simple as possible, but you can introduce these. I'm going to call them complexities, but I think rather than a complexity, they're just a characteristic of combat. So for me, it creates a more vivid experience. Helps players think. We don't want players to just roll in. Firewall, Eldritch Storm, swing my axe, bang, do this. All things like weapon speed. And you're a DM, you can streamline it. You don't have to go right down the rabbit hole with every single little rule there. But it's I much prefer combat in second edition. The other things are the how would you I find that 5th edition doesn't feel as dangerous as 2nd edition or 1st edition AD&D for that matter. And I think that, to me, is where the video game feel of 5th edition sort of makes itself apparent. It's just, it's like, I've got unlimited lives, I'm just going to charge in. If I die, I'm just going to respawn and bang, bang, bang. And I know, that depends on how a game's DM'd. But I feel like, some of the crazy settings like Dark Sun in 2nd edition was really, it was a real eye-opener to players of traditional fantasy worlds. 2nd edition never pulled the punches. It never tried to hide the fact that the world isn't hunky-dory. That you could walk down an alley and have your throat cut quick smart sort of thing. That behind this door could be some sort of powerful monster that's gonna, put everyone in the hurt locker. And that danger, the potential for danger, I think adds to there's just like an undertone in gameplay. And if as a DM, and I mean, I'm sure there are DMs that can create this sort of feeling with 5th edition, but I, at least in I DM'd 2 campaigns and I played in 1 under 5th edition, and the guy that I played with didn't have a heap of DM experience. He did alright, but I just don't think that they stack up, if that makes sense. So that's probably just a preference thing for me, or the feeling, the warm fuzzies I get, nostalgia maybe. But yeah. The other thing is the power of role playing versus role playing, if you know what I mean. So I know 5th edition there was very much a concerned effort to encourage role play. So people getting into character and using voices and all those kinds of things. So it made it really try to make the game feel immersive. But also with 5th edition, it's like World of Warcraft. You don't have to do that. You can just go through the motions, do this. It's a lot more fun when rule sets allow reward that role play. So 5th edition was very good with that. So there's alignment, which, you know, I don't feel like when I watch a lot of 5th edition videos, it really gets that much of a just assumed everyone's sort of good. I don't know, and I could be wrong. It's down to DMing style. But, you know, alignment, reputation, like a non-weapon proficiency, so there's all these little nuances of a character that players can lean into. And as a DM, I feel it's important to reward players who lean into them. So I like seeing player characters with maybe like an oddball non-weapon proficiency, something that's not really tied to their character class. I mean, it's all well and good to be a ranger or something, and you know you've got tracking and all that sort of thing, but something odd like, and again, it's not even like blacksmithing or, you know, candle making or whatever. So when players not only choose a non-weapon proficiency, which I always run in 2nd edition, if they choose those non-weapon proficiencies, and if they're paying attention to what's happening, and they look down the character sheet and they're like, hang on, you know, I am a candle maker. This setup here, these candles look odd. You know, and if they can tie that and bring that in and want to start making sort of checks based off what their character knowledge, like, I'm going to reward that. And I think having these little nuances that are actually part of your character and can statistically matter to the game are great. And I don't feel 5th edition does that as well. I'm also not a fan of inspiration. I get the point of it, and I get that it's fun, being able to re-roll and those kinds of things, but again, it is another mechanic, and I'm probably going to harp on about this a lot, maybe too much, but again, it is a mechanic that feels very video game-esque to me. It's like when you're playing a lot of sort of like RPGs on the computer, and you'll be fighting enemies, and you know, gradually this bar builds up, and then all of a sudden you've got like a super attack, or you know, some sort of special power, and that's what inspiration feels like to me. I would rather, as a DM, at that critical moment, like fudge a dice roll to give a player like an exceedingly good advantage, or make something fantastical happen for them. It's not that feels more exciting to me than roll, oh, I'm going to do this, so I'm going to roll 2 and get to pick the best. Kind of, I think it steals the magic of the moment, rather than me, they're like, oh, come on, and they roll, and then you just say, like, you know, your blow finds the perfect spot in their armor, cleaves their arm off, or whatever. You manage to cast a spell, this, that, and the third, or you manage to save against a poisonous attack, or dodge an arrow, or whatever you choose. Convince the king of blah, blah, blah. That's more exciting, and you can create more of a story with it than just like roll 2, don't even pick the highest, because video game mentality, everyone's chasing that natural 20, so the more dice I can roll, the more chances I've got of getting one. So definitely not a fan of that. I like criticals, like at a 20, and obviously within 2nd edition you can really go down the rabbit hole with like, okay, I rolled a critical, but let's roll for, is it an arm or a leg or whatever, and those rules can help shape the story. Like, you can just get a critical, chop a dude's heads off, but if you get a critical, take a leg off, and then you've got like an NPC that can come back for revenge, or increase the use of the NPC and the ability for additional story hooks and those kinds of things. And I think, lastly, the biggest one is, and some people can see this as a disadvantage, but the absolute wealth of material that was printed in 2nd edition. Now, this was part of the downfall of it. they just printed stuff and printed stuff and printed stuff and printed stuff, assuming everyone is going to buy everything, and that just wasn't the case. People were Forgotten Realms fans, or Dragonlance, or Dark Sun, or Planescape, and they just produced so much it was impossible for fans of the game, consumers of the product, to buy all these things, and it just wasn't feasible. And it's pretty well documented, all of like the to put it frankly, like the idiotic decisions made by TSR in the end days before they were sold to WotC. It's just ridiculous, like the way that even like art was managed. Like I recently watched the Eye of the Beholder, the Art of Dungeons and Dragons documentary, and they were talking about, they were getting these like stupid directives like, oh, this product's really important, use your most expensive paints, regardless of whether the colours suited the palette or could do whatever. No, you have to use it. It was just so stupid. But I digress. There is so much. Is 600 and I think 647 or 43, something around that number, products that were printed for second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Some of that were reprints or like hard and soft covers and that kind of thing, but easily over 600 individual products. Like, that is a lot of material and so much depth to explore, to take and use for your campaigns. Now, you don't need to buy bugger all of that. I'm a big fan of everyone owning the 3 core books, even though it'll say in the DM's guide, don't let your players read this. You get players comfortable with DMing and the DMG, then hopefully there's a chance they will decide to DM a game and you will get to play. But that was quite a waffle on. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm just going to end it with a couple of things. First of all, happy birthday to Zero Hobbies. Hope you had a good one, bro. Had a good time with the family and that kind of thing. Again, might be a little bit before I have any new stuff to show off that I've bought. I am watching a few things on eBay though, of course. So I've been very inspired by Zero in the Beard Clipper, and they do hobby vlogs. So, like, obviously all I've talked about primarily on this channel is Dungeons and Dragons, but you know, these guys are playing D&D and 40k and model railways and RC cars and all those kinds of things. Now, I'm still going to be predominantly tabletop RPGs, aka Dungeons and Dragons, but I wouldn't mind, and I am considering getting in on a little bit of that hobby vlog action. So hopefully doing a few things during the week, and I can do a bit of a summary and film some stuff and show some things I've done. I've still got a bunch of like Reaper Bones miniatures in the cupboard that need painting. I'm trying to rearrange my space here. I live in a tiny 1-bedroom unit. I can't have stuff down low because my little fella will take off with it. So it's going to be a bit of time sorting those things out, but I want to start making some terrain. I want to build a gaming table that I can put up and take down. All these kinds of things. So it's always cool to see what people are up to YouTube. And it's always an inspiration. So thanks very much for watching. I do have a couple of videos planned this week. Hopefully I get to get out. And one is going to be some world building stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you to the next one. Cheers.